Now, for a closer look at the housing market and what happens from here, we're joined by real estate expert Tom Storey. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. 67%, obviously a massive plunge. What do you make of those numbers?
Well, to be honest, it's not really that surprising. It's actually encouraging to me. It shows that the general public and all the people in the real estate community are taking this seriously and staying home for the most part. The other number you talked about there was that new listings are also down 64%. So 67% for sales, but 64% for new listings. If those continue to be very similar numbers, that's going to be an indication that prices could be holding for a while.
Speaking of, I mean, what are we looking in terms of the average price? Because obviously there's not a lot out there, and making it obviously difficult for people trying to buy a home if they sold their house right before this. Talk about that and really where the price is sitting right now. Where do you see it going?
Yeah, so we always, when the numbers come out, we talk about year over year numbers. So year over year, the price was actually up by like $1,000 over last April. But really, it's breaking down to like pre-COVID and during COVID numbers. So the numbers that came out in April, what we need to keep in mind is that your sellers on the market that sold in April, for the most part, were in a position that they absolutely needed to sell. And I think that's going to be reflected in the price point. So April numbers are down significantly from March, which again is not a surprise, but just something to keep in mind that for the most part, I would say for my clientele, 80% of buyers completely stopped their search. So they're just not out there. And a lot of sellers that had bought a month, 2 months ago that really needed to sell are now taking a little bit of a haircut on their property just to get it done in April.
Yeah, perhaps a correction in the market, but not the one that people anticipated or even want. Certainly not the type. So where do we go from here in terms of trying to sell a home? If you're trying to buy a home, what can we expect in terms of how the real estate market and the real estate agents really have responded to this?
Yeah, well, as an organization, we were told from the very beginning, like, stop all face-to-face interactions. So that's good. A lot of people have been taking that very seriously. Now, a few things that you can do, like if you're in a position that you absolutely need to sell your home because there's still listings going on the market, you just have to make sure that you use all the technology available. And whether that's the virtual tours, the videos, the floor plans, like buyers are being super selective now. And if they are seeing a property in person, they're going to see that one place and they're making an offer. Like they're being very selective and narrow-minded, which I think is really good. So that's just something to keep in mind. The whole virtual buying, I have sold properties in the last month, 100% start to finish, fully virtually, where the buyer that bought it never stepped inside the property. However, I will tell you, in the future, whatever the new normal looks like, I don't think people are going to become virtual buying. The greatest thing about real estate is that you can feel and touch it.
Well, you almost need to, right? I mean, that is the deciding factor. You need to go in there to see because for a lot of people, this is their forever home, and they don't want to necessarily do that online. So you wonder how this is going to affect just overall people's interest in this. I mean, this is a crystal ball question, almost impossible to answer. But how long do you see this going?
Okay, so I'll give this a shot. The way I would look at it is, again, predicting the future is a fool's game, right? But what we can do is we can look at the past. And through the last 40 years of the Toronto real estate market, including the crash in the 90s, 2008, the second half of 2017, we've still averaged about 7% appreciation. So whatever way you cut this, Toronto still has a housing shortage. And the three kind of pillars that I always look at that are going to move the real estate market forward are, can people borrow money? Is it affordable? So check mark for that right now. Interest rates are good. The second one is population growth. That's obviously on pause right now. So I think that's something that we really need to keep in mind. And then the third one is just like, can people afford to buy real estate? What's the unemployment levels? And again, that's kind of a question mark. But overall, I would just say whichever way you look at this, there's just really not a whole lot of homes to choose from in Toronto.
Well, Tom, always great to talk to you, and it helps frame what people plan to do in the future. Tom Storey, appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.